Hi there! G'day everyone! Yesterday I caught a few nice redfin. We kept 3 for a feed. Now I'm going to fillet them and I'm going to take the meat down to my lovely mum who lives just down the road. If you want to learn how to fillet redfin, watch on. I've got to stand up because this is rather uncomfortable. Ah, that's better. Right. Here we have one of the redfin. Not a big fish, around about a pound, a bit under, but not a bad size eating fish. I have 2 knives when I fillet fish, a blunt one and a sharp one. The long, sharper one is for cutting the skin off really and cutting around bones and stuff. The blunter one is pretty much for cutting the head off and ripping through bones. There's lots of different ways to do this. This isn't the only way. I know people are going to comment and say, why did you cut the head off? Why didn't you just cut around the fin and along the back? I usually do that with larger fish. With these smaller fish, I personally find it easier to just cut the head off, cut in behind the backbone and just cut the side of the fish off. With the bigger fish, it's often easier to cut in through the side, behind the front fins, spin your knife around and then cut it off and leave the head and all the bones in one piece. So this is how I like to do it, particularly with smaller redfin of around this size. First thing, off with the head. You can do it! Cut his head off. Hello? I'll chuck that in the sink. That head is destined for a yabby net somewhere. Where possible, I try and use the blunt knife I'll use to go through this. I would prefer to use the sharper knife. But being a smaller fish, I'll use the blunt knife and I will cut in behind the backbone. When you take its head off, you can see there's the bone there, that's the spine. You cut either side of that when you cut the sides off. So cut in beside it. I've just decided I will use the sharp knife. With fish this size, I just cut straight through the bones, keeping the knife pretty much hard up against that spine or that backbone and cut the side of the fish off. Okay, there's the start of my fillet. Well, there's a fillet, but I've still got to get the bones out. So I put that on that plate. I'll do exactly the same with this. Cut in behind that backbone. I cut through the bones. With bigger fish I cut around the bones, or I use wire cutters or something to cut through the bones. But with the smaller fish this side, it's easier just to cut straight through the rib cage. That goes in the sink with the head, ready for the yabby nets. And there's my other fillet. Now we've got to cut the bones off the fillet. Alright, so what I'll do, you can see there's a fin there, and all this firm bit around here where the gills go, the gill covers. That whole area is laced with bones, and what you're better off doing is putting the knife in behind both fins and cutting across on a bit of an angle. You've lost all that. There is meat in there, but there's also a lot of bones and stuff in there. Now what I do is I cut around the bones. Remember I said a minute ago with the bigger fish I cut around them as I cut the fillets off. But with these small little table or plate sized redfin, I find it easier to just cut straight through the bones and remove the bones later, which is what I'm doing now. Because you can see what you're doing, you can see where the bones are. If your knife's nice and sharp, you should be able to just cut around them like that. And there you go. There's the bones. That's the rib cage. Now I have a boneless piece of fish. I'll do the same to this one. Just cut in behind the bones, cut around the bones, cut the rib cage out. There's the rib cage. There's not much meat on there, it's just pure bones. And I'll cut the fin off the front, as I stated before. Some fish, particularly redfin and yellow belly, have very, very tough skin. Look at that, there's the front fin gone. So now I just have to skin the fish. I can see there's fins up the back here. Where the fins are, it's always a good idea just to cut them out, cut around them like that, because they'll contain a lot of little bones. Where that fin, there's a lot of little bones under that fin there that dig. I can feel them there. I've cut them out nicely. And the same as this little red one down here, the little red fin, where the red fin probably gets its name. I thought they were actually named after the founding members of Split Ends, Tim Finn and Neil Finn. I thought Redfin was their third lost brother. Right, there's our fillet. All that's left now is to take the skin off. We stick our long sharp knife. It's always good if you've got a flexible knife that can bend when you do this. You put it between the skin and the flesh and you sort of saw along it like that. This is the hardest bit. If you've got a sharp knife, you can just pull the skin and it'll come apart. But I find it better to just bend my knife, that flex, and just cut the meat off the skin just like that. And there is one redfin fillet ready to go. I put that on the in the finished goods department. I put the skin in here with everything else. And do the same to this. And there's my other fillet. I'll put that in the sink. What I'm going to do is put these two fillets on the plate. I'll give them a wash. Always run the tap for a second before you wash it. Because if there's any hot water left in the pipe, it will spoil your fillet. It will cook the fish. And there we have two magnificent fresh redfin fillets. You know, chopping board. You need two knives, a blunt one and a sharp one. A clean plate for your fillets. Put your rubbish in the sink. And you need a bag to put your rubbish in when you're finished. And that's about it. And you need a towel on standby because you find yourself wiping your hands quite often. When you finish it, goes straight in the wash. I've got two more redfin to fillet now. I'll do that. And then all those bones and heads and fillets and tails and stuff will all go into a plastic bag, and I'll put them in the freezer because it's Sunday morning and my bin doesn't go out until Friday. If I put them in the bin now, it's going to stink by Friday, and most likely they'll end up being used as yabby bait anyway. There you go. I hope you learnt how to fillet redfin.